So in this section, we're going to have a look at how to add data frames as columns. So we're going to keep our two data frames that we had before. We had our test, we had our test 2. And we saw last time how to add them as rows, and I'm going to just show you a slightly alternative version, which will make sense in a moment. So we did a concatenate, round brackets, square brackets, the name of our two variables. And if we add those together, that adds our rows in. There is another flag, which is your axis, which tells you how to add these together. So if you use axis 0, this is your rows axis. It obviously makes no difference in this case because that is the default. However, if we add axis 1, so we change this from default from 0 to 1, then it adds it on as columns instead. So this is another one of these where you don't need to set it if the default is in your favour, which it is for rows, but for columns you need to set that to be a 1. So that does leave us with slightly daft column names because we now have 2 columns called first and 2 columns called second, which is not great. So normally the kind of data you'll be adding would be different, because that's the point. If it's the same, you would add it as a row. So I'm going to just recreate test 2 as a Pandas data frame, and this time I'm going to call it third. I'm going to give it the same value, so that's 5 and 6 for the first dictionary item, comma, and for the second one, which is now our 4th row, colon, square brackets for our list, 7 and 8. And if we run that in, and then this time when we add them together, we get more sensible column names. Obviously, we could change the column names separately, but I think because we're adding data together, it makes more sense to do that in the raw data. Because they're going to be different column values, or we'll be adding them as a row. Okay, so when you're happy with this one, move on to the next video, and we're going to be adding data frames together with different sizes. So the examples we've seen here have been fine because they're all the same size. They've had the same number of rows and columns. So what happens when that isn't the case? I'll see you there when you're ready.